Okay. I meant to bring
I
it.
haven't checked my mail yet.
Oh, I get a lot of anonymous letters.
Really?
I was going to say, it's dangerous.
Cashman, Sarah, what's your handwriting?
Sarah Robinson is not coming tonight.
Oh, okay. No, your handwriting. I love your
Her
notebook.
daughter's
Oh,
a basketball
notebook?
team, which she coaches, was in a championship game.
I have a system.
She asked us all to wish. Good evening. Going to call this February 19th, 2025 budget working session to order. Ms. Meeker, will you take the roll?
Ms. Boucher.
Here.
Ms. Campbell.
Here.
Ms. Hastings.
Here.
Ms. Higgins.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Sadowski.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
I am here. Sarah Robinson is excused. We have quorum.
Great. Mr. Dunn,
Sure.
turn it over to you to begin.
Yep. So in front of you, or on your seat when you came, you had a paper copy of Mondays, so you have that. And then tonight, you have a copy in front of you of tonight's. Okay, so
Thank
that,
you.
and I got a message from Terry that she has posted this on the website as of now. So, that's,
So if anyone is watching this at home, tonight's presentation is already on the website, and people can follow along at home as well as on the screen. Great.
so, the topics tonight are the co-curricular activities, then buildings, grounds, construction, principal and interest, that's 3 different functions. And then transportation, and then we have some follow-up from Monday night, questions that you had. A lot of that with John. And the public information, where you can find everything. Okay? So I will start with, let's do these things. speaking into the air. Anyway, next, so when we talk about the 1400 series, and again, all this is based on the state financial system. That's how we report it and classify it. This is where our other instructional programs in our school-sponsored sports and co-curricular and summer school are located. And I note on here, if people are seeing the misspellings, this is purely just a dump out of our financial systems. You get so many characters. And in the grand scheme of things, we just didn't get time to go back and clean it up, but hopefully you understand what services and maintenance are. So, at a high level, this is the co-curricular budget, and the salaries are up 20 grand, benefits 6. The professional services that are up, 6,600 of that increase is for police coverage. Okay? So that has been requested, and or my understanding is that's something that was wanted. And then when we move to purchase property, that is the increase in, let me see, which is the professional services. Yes. Increase in the rentals, because we have a number of different rentals that we do for hockey and some of the other sports. And then there's also, for us to 6.5, there's an increase in the student athletic insurance. And then when we get to supplies, they've added about 23,000 for uniform replacement, which is new. And then under equipment, the decreases in there, what they had for prior, it probably should have been under equipment, was uniforms for, what's the unit up at the high school? Unified Sports. Yes. So they reduced that and then moved that money into supplies, but this is a broader replacement plan for uniforms.
And this is for all sports, all.
Runlet and Concord High, and then also in there you have, which would be in the salaries, the 6,000 in co-curricular per elementary school. That's collectively bargained. And then also in the back, the collective bargaining agreement for the teachers is a co-curricular scale for all the sports, and that's the stipends they get, whether it's alpine skiing, wrestling. That is all in this, under this.
So I think it was in the budget 2 years ago, but it could have been last year. We added an athletic trainer position because we weren't able to contract out for those services
Yep.
anymore. Have we gone back and looked what is the most efficient budgetary at this point?
We have not. We can do that. And I think there's one comment is what will be asked and what they would like, but we will go back and look at that. I have a feeling we're going to have the same challenge we had before, is finding an organization that will do it, but we will.
I mean,
ask
I
that.
think it's
Yep.
just worth re-looking at, I understand there's a benefit to having an athletic trainer at the high
Yep.
school. I also understand that we had more coverage of more games when
Yep.
we were contracting out the service, because one
Two people at
person
one time, yeah.
can't do every sporting event at one time. So
Sure.
I think it would be good.
We will
to look
get
at
you that information. Okay. So you're looking a little under 3% overall. Some of it, again, is the contractual changes. I think the big theme here is the uniforms, which are a little offset by the movements, but the safety, security piece as it relates to police and the increase in the rentals facilities.
How many teams are the uniform replacements for? What are we, and what's our schedule or?
So what they have told us is that they plan on doing a 5-year replacement. So it'll be an ongoing cycle. I don't know who's up first and who's up next. I think that will be vetted because you have various boosters that raise money.
I was gonna say, don't,
Yes,
I never ever had the school pay for cross-country uniforms, not ever.
I will tell you this is that. So, but we decided to
So
bring it
this
forward
is,
to you.
this is new.
Yes,
So the 39,000 in equipment last year was not for uniforms, it was for something else.
There was 15,000 of that was in there for unified sports uniforms is what it was labeled.
Okay.
So they've reduced that, and then, I don't think uniforms are equipment, as far as the dress stuff. Now, when you get into like the helmets for, which is in that line,
Right.
for football, that's different. And it used to be, you have to recondition them every 10 years. Now they're like a high chair or a car seat. 5 years, they're done. You
Yeah.
can't resell them, can't do anything. So now you gotta replace them.
Right.
But,
I would like more detail on what the plan is for the
Sure.
uniforms, and if this is new, and what our current replacement schedule is, if we have one.
yep.
Yeah, detail.
I sold a lot of popcorn in my day.
Any other questions as it relates to co-curricular?
The transportation costs for co-curricular and the transportation budget.
Yep. So I move on to facilities, summer projects, and then the debt service. So as you can see, where I see supervision of building SRV service, but that's just our financial system. So first series is the 2,600, which is basically the day-to-day operations of the budget. And this is district-wide. So you have salaries up 78,000, and this is going to be our custodial staff and maintenance staff. And the facility, no, he's not into there. That it's under administration. Okay, I'm pretty sure. And then benefits are going down. There has been a lot of turnover. So we are going to look at that just to make sure, as I highlighted to you, the non-New Hampshire retirement had gone down, just to make sure that that is truly down from different plans. We do, and we'll see what that comes in. Professional service, again, we try to level fund. Purchase property, we tried to level fund with some adjustments. And then purchase services up a little bit. And other than that, we kept everything else flat.
And what's driving the increase in purchase services?
Yep. I don't know what I did with my notes for this slide, so I'll pull out my paper version. I might have to, while John's talking, when we get to his, I might come back and tell you that, because I did go through and do the notes. I don't know why I'm not seeing them.
And there's
yet.
no additional personnel in the salaries line, that's just.
Yeah, that's just purely
Yeah.
increases. And if you remember, there was quite a bit of a jump with the maintenance staff with that agreement. And I think we are fully staffed from a standpoint of all positions are
We are.
filled.
Less one. but-
Less one. Okay. So I'll get you that information, okay?
These numbers were nice to look at, though. This was a pretty page.
I thought you missed that.
Can I ask quick clarification? You said all positions are filled save one, but that position is budgeted for in
Yes,
this
it's
cycle?
a custodial
Okay.
vacancy.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we move on to building improvement services, which we code under summer projects. So there are account lines set up. Most of what we use is the purchase property, because that's where we put the budget line. And just so you know, when we budget it, he has his projects laid out, but we put everything into a district line. And then as those projects do, we move the money to the school for the appropriate project. Because all his numbers are estimates right now. So until all the activity starts happening, this money gets distributed to the appropriate school for the services that were rendered.
Can I ask, just because we've got new members and also members of the public who may be watching, can you expand on what it means, like what purchased property means, and that it doesn't necessarily mean real estate?
Yeah, it is not real estate. These are things where we're using outside services to try to make improvements to the property, or renting facilities. So like the comp would fall under there. Believe it or not, the porta potties fall under there. The ice arena falls under there. So it's just what the financial manual has
It's a
coded
large
it.
umbrella.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
category. Okay, Thank you.
Okay. So the detail, which Matt can speak to, is in the next page. And I know, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be at that Capitol Facilities, I think it was December 3rd or 4th, I was away, where you went over the capital improvement plan. And I'm sure for many of you see that that number is not the same from that day to there. You requested a flat budget, fitting in what we feel we can fit in, so he can talk further to that.
So if you want, I can go through this list with everyone real quick. All right.
please.
So, as Jack said, in December, when we had our capital improvement plan, capital facilities, and we reviewed the capital improvement plan, there was a little bit over $1 million slated for summer projects. Some of the things that, when we said, all right, we're going to level it off at 700 to keep things low, some of the priorities that came to the top that we've talked about are the traffic engineer for Beaver Meadow. We know that there's an issue over there. We've worked with the city for years. I really think instead of just keep deferring it down the road, I think this is a good time to engage with a traffic engineer, take a good look at our traffic patterns, and then from that, get a report. And then the following year or two, we would look at that report and bid that work out as improvements, according to the traffic. So that would be for Beaver Meadow. I won't go through this tonight, but just in the interest of time, we also would be looking at finishing up what we started over at Millbrook and Broken Ground, and also when we look at the Runlet Middle School, looking at that traffic with a traffic engineer when that time comes. It says on this note, roof replacement. That's not enough money nearly for roof replacement. That's roof patching and a type of a nuclear test that you would use for Runlet. I need to find out what the moisture is, do that sometime in the spring, and then go through and see what areas we could adequately patch correctly. So that is an estimate. Speaking of Runlet, there's other things that we need to focus on. We need to add shut-off valves throughout the main lines of that building. It's very difficult for me to change out a toilet or anything like that because I don't have shut-offs in key areas. So we have to reestablish the ones that we have, which are old, and then we have to install newer ones further down the line. Mechanical systems upgrade. We have been doing that over the last couple of years and need to continue. That's replacing valves. Think of all the valves that go up to the rooftop units and all over the baseboard heat. We are replacing those, and that's things we need to continue to do over the summer, not necessarily in the winter when we need the heat. As with everything, and we're going to talk about it with painting as well, flooring upgrades. We put monies in flooring every single year because think of over 1 million square feet of schools and all the usage it gets. All of these items, and I should say, when we develop the capital improvement plan, we have life cycle costs for all the key components, including flooring. So you'll see that as an ongoing maintenance. We've talked throughout the past 2 years now about the sinkhole up at Concord High School.
I don't know, is Ms. Sadowski aware of this? I know you've heard maybe casual mentions of it, but I'm not sure you were aware of it.
Yes.
Concerned that we just casually talk about the sinkhole.
Yeah.
So
Tell me
maybe
more
just a
about
little
that.
bit background on that.
Okay. So I'd say roughly over the past 2 years, we've had 5 or so sinkholes related to the channelway underground, which carries Bow Brook.
There's a multi-year history, 2007 specifically.
We built
The
a lot of
mothers-
our
The fish.
schools
The
on
mother-
top
yeah,
of
the-
water.
The trout.
Lots of history there, including the
Well, it's not big
structure.
enough to swallow a car, right? These are small sinkholes.
These are, right.
Bigger.
For now.
So that's a very old structure, 1800s granite block. We dug it up and exposed it after the last day of school this past summer, and it verified what we were believing, that there were small gaps in the structure where mortar over time had worn out, and the water is rushing through that channel at such a rate that it started to go outside the structure, causing sinkholes. So we put a temporary safe patch in for a year. It's under design right now with Novus Engineering, and then our plan is to carry forward and do, it's about 150 feet if you think of the corner of Warren and Westbourne as it heads up to the building. We need to replace that roughly 48-inch with a 48-inch culvert structure underneath to replace the old granite. So it's safe for now. We are keeping our eye on it. The things that we did over the summer gave us some time to get the design work done, permitting, and get it done for this summer. So that's why I have it on there. But I'm happy to answer any other questions to that.
So Matt, you said approximately 150 feet.
Roughly.
That's what percentage of the culvert that actually goes the whole length of the
It's probably about.
building?
About a quarter.
About a quarter.
That structure runs at the very top of Woodman Street, across the street, if you could picture the corner of Woodman and Warren, if you count 3 houses down across the street from our property, there's a inlet culvert that runs over sort of near the dumpsters, if you will. It goes under the 1994 section of the building when that section was built, and then it makes its way into the parking lot, comes down, goes over this area where we have seen the problems over the last 2 years, and then it goes into a large catch basin that further goes down Bow Brook to the south end of town.
So Matt, what's the condition of the other 3/4 of the
I'm
culvert?
glad you asked that, because I can't assume everyone knows. We've had the whole entire structure cameraed from the inside. The other sections appear to be in good condition. The 1994 section looks like it's in great condition. We've got complete video camera analysis of it. The city's looked at it. The Novus Engineering, I've looked at it. So that area is good for now. But this one section, I think, because it would be a very expensive project, so let's prioritize the segments of that length, is my suggestion to you, that we hit the worst areas and then continue to analyze the other areas. The other 3/4 appear to be in good condition at this time.
Ms. Campbell?
Is it okay if I transition back to Runlet? Is anybody else? Okay.
Yep.
So, just want to put this out here, and my first question, I guess, is, when we do work in the school, do we let, like, do the teachers find out, like, do we send out, hey, we're working on, I'm not talking about, I don't need to send out a memo every time we, wash something, whatever, but
Sure.
like bigger projects?
So if we have anything planned, obviously we let the staff know. So
Okay.
we would be telling them. I don't think if they want to get in the weeds, we definitely will.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm not
love
saying
explaining
weeds.
that.
Yeah, no.
But,
Yeah.
but sometimes if there's an emergency, we'll let as many people we know in the school know that we've got to do the work.
Yeah.
So we do.
Okay, and I'm asking because as the year progresses and as more conversations you have about the rebuild, I think the more transparent we all are and publicizing what work is being done on Rutland, I think that's really important, and I
Okay,
think it
that's
will
good
be
to-
important. So even if we want to put in the middle school site, like work that we are currently doing on Runlet, it may help future conversations, because I'm
That's not a
sure it
bad
will be
idea.
asked,
Sure.
what are you guys doing to fix the current site? I think it would be really helpful to be as clear and transparent as possible on there.
And I think Matt, as you can see, has tried to be
Oh, you do an outstanding
walking
job. Yep.
a line of, continuing to keep the building usable and safe and dry without putting in
Yep.
a lot of money. I think the total here is $75,000, it looks like. $85,000, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
I'm just thinking also
Yep.
future boards too. Like if
Yep.
they're asked what has
Yep.
been done these years, look, here it is.
Yep.
'Cause I it will come up.
That's a great idea. We've got plenty of opportunities to do that, so I appreciate that.
I'm sorry to add to your plate.
No, I like talking
Mr.
about it.
Richards.
Yeah.
So transitioning back to,
Oh, sorry.
no, no, it's not only.
Back to the
To the
sinkhole.
sinkhole and the traffic engineer, because as I read this list, does the city have any responsibility for the drainage, especially for the Bow Brook? I don't want to call it the sinkhole, it's a culvert replacement and repair. Does the city have any partial in this? I mean,
So every meeting that we've had on site, it's much easier to do it when you open up the structure and they're there. It is on our property. I would love a little relief and a little help from the city. We are carrying that water. Bow Brook starts way north of us, and we're carrying it through roughly 800, 750 feet or so on our property, and then delivering it back to the remainder of Bow Brook. So I'd like to think so. That's a conversation that I think we should continue to have. They're always at the table when we are talking with the city engineer about this type of work.
okay, I would encourage you to continue those conversations.
I will.
Financially. And then the traffic engineer, if we're looking at, that's a traffic issue, does the city have any contribution in that area, or?
Well, we see a lot of the traffic buildup on the surrounding roads, like Sylvester, Sewell Falls, and so it's causing congestion. The thing that makes everybody a little bit nervous is people are ever growing more and more impatient. So holdups and waiting for kids to come out, you know we need to do something. It's dangerous. We've had situations with crossing guards out there helping the traffic. But yeah, so I think your point is, can the city help? I think they can. They have in the past. They have a traffic engineer. They have a traffic operations committee. So I think that's something we can continue to work with. But we all know about it. Those of us that we've been talking about it for a while. I think it's high time to put it on the schedule for this year and at least get some plans and ideas to.
I fully support putting it on the schedule. I just want to make sure that the city is involved in this because they have a vested interest as well in safety. I
Absolutely.
just want to make sure we're including them. Thank you.
Yep, always. We have some masonry repairs you can see, and those things will continue as well. We have a lot of brick buildings, but at Christa McAuliffe, we have a parapet wall on the roof that is allowing water in. So I've gotten a couple of quotes out there. It's something we need to take care of so we can abate the water from, any water from coming in. Like we talked about flooring, interior, exterior painting, that's a continual expense. I just wanted to identify it as something that it really does make a difference when you can refresh hallways, bathrooms, classrooms, give it a fresh coat of paint. There's ledge repair that we've had on the list for a couple of years. I wanted to put that in as a priority for this year at Beaver Meadow. So I have that in there. And then lastly, part of our access program up at White Farm, it's a dirt parking lot, for those of you who know, making it a little bit tricky in wet weather, in snow, and that sort of thing. I'd like to get some paving down there, but also from the parking lot, the sidewalk that accesses the buildings, I'd like to redo that entire ramp sidewalk in. So I will say there's a lot more things that I'd like to be able to do, but I think these were the ones that I really tried to take from our capital improvement plan and prioritize.
Ms. Hastings?
The White Farm, the buses, when they drop students off for field trips there, don't turn into that parking lot. They usually are let off on the street
So there's
in a
two.
safe way, but is that the building you're talking about?
So that's, I think you're referring to the Project C, which is
Yes.
technically part of White Farm. But just before that, on the government property, the state property, is land, which is White Farm, where we have a a house that we have some staff in. We have a long, big, we call it the main building, and then we have a greenhouse and a octagon and we all call it a goat barn. but
There's
we
a
have-
program there, right?
Yeah, and so
okay, that's
they
right.
pull the bus in there, but
Alright.
at the Project C,
Okay.
it's safer. They don't have
Whenever I
to-
hear White Farm, I was thinking Project C, so
Yeah.
thank you for that
It's
clarification.
kind of all,
So I
Yeah.
came a couple of years ago with the staff from the high school to the instructional committee, and we talked about, we had to go through program approval to have that site
Yep.
approved for our access program who goes over there, and it's pretty neat. They have a garden over there now. They have a, I don't know, what do you call it,
There it
with the
is.
fish and
The
the
little
whole-
dome.
oh, the.
Yeah, they got
koi
a lot of
pond,
science, koi pond over there. They've
Clinton
done
Street.
some
Yeah,
really,
Orient
really
it,
nice
and
job
then you
over
just go
there.
down with our little mouse, and then that's,
Yeah.
this is, oh, look, they're already there. See, Matt?
Sorry.
But behind that, let me see if I can come back a little bit. Maybe it'll go, oh, look, it went away.
Yep.
This spot right
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
And so
then-
we own that spot, not the state?
Correct. You see where that
There it
fence
is.
is right there?
yeah.
To the right of that fence, and you can see that ramp that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
where the wooden structure is, the second one in, between the buildings. So if we're in there doing the parking lot, I'd also like to do that ramp and make it smooth and,
Ms. Meeker?
Yeah, I apologize. I did not watch or attend the Capitol Facilities meeting where you had what sounds like a larger list of requests, upwards of 1 million, that has been reduced down to 700,000. Could you just, specifically, I'm curious if any projects for Runlet were dropped from that list to make up
no,
that
I
amount?
mean, no, they weren't. I mean, there's continual more projects that come in after that, but there's, we're looking at the next 4 years, right? So there's necessary heating things that we need to do, the plumbing. Anytime we need to replace a faucet or a fixture in there, by installing these shutoffs, it's gonna make it that much easier and that much quicker to do. Instead of waiting for a break or a summer shutdown where we secure the water to the building and then have to go in and do it.
And then my second question is, are there any of the things that were taken off the list, do any of them relate to safety or security of the buildings, like shoring up the buildings?
No, but I am glad you asked that, because part of our strategic plan, as you know, we want to continue doing safety and things for our schools. Last summer, as you all know, we installed 4 secure vestibules, 2 at the high school, 1 at Broken Ground and Beaver Meadow, our older schools. So safety in all of our minds is number one. So there are definitely things that I want to continue to focus on. Hopefully, there's more grants out there where we can look at. I met with a company this week who installed an alert notification in Bedford, and I'm just asking them to give us quotes so that we can incorporate that into future planning. But
Matt, can you provide it was a 10-year plan, capital plan, essentially, that he provided the capital facilities plan. So I think if you could distribute copies to the whole board, that would be great.
Yep.
Is that your hand?
Yes. Matt, would you be able to tell me a little bit about the ledge repair at BMS?
So when you go, when you come into the site, you're looking at the side of the building and where the kitchen is, and then underneath, you could go in that way, the mechanical rooms and the gymnasium. There's a cantilevered section of concrete that is the walkway path.
I'm sorry, what is cantilever? It's when something rests like this?
Well, it was engineered and designed to be freestanding.
Kind of more like this, right, man?
Exactly.
Thank
but
you.
Now we might get in the weeds, but that structure has all sorts of rebar and strength in it. So it's designed so that it's, a very small gap between the exterior wall and the 2 sections where you could enter the building. So the building was built in 1987, and over time with snow and ice melt and all of that, it's taken a little bit of, so I'm talking and looking at the same
Excellent.
time.
Thank
See
you.
where the pointer is?
Very helpful.
That's the section I'm referring to, but if you were to go closer, you'd have an upper and a lower deck portion, if you will. So.
The
in
little
there-
yellow guy didn't go down your little driveway. Sorry.
The yellow.
So I'm doing it from the
Matt
street.
does have great pictures of it.
I could,
Yeah, this is-
Jess, I could draw a picture of it if you want.
I was thinking about doing it myself, actually.
So, so anyway, I've had the concrete tested. Everything is safe and fine, obviously. Otherwise, we would be making a different recommendation. But it's been on the list since 2018, and I keep pushing it out. I want to rectify that, so part of the design would be to replace that slab, put some steel in there.
You're not gonna
and-
get to it, Jack.
I'm gonna try to do an aerial.
I don't know what he's doing.
Zoom in.
Just ignore him. Keep going.
There you
So
go.
So-
that's a great picture. So if you can, see where he's talking about that
Yes.
triangular piece? I would want to remove most of that section. It's already been engineered and designed, so have it removed, have new structure put in, and then have the concrete section repoured. And then
with steel.
a little bit of course, yeah,
Probably
underneath.
still concrete.
You'd have to. So
What's the, you don't see it in this picture, what's the drop off right underneath that? How
that's
far is it?
probably, I'd say about 12 feet, 12, 13
So-
feet.
Yeah.
There is a entrance underneath that, it's because you can't see it here, but the hill goes down really steeply, that's what this
Mm-hmm.
Right.
curve.
Well, the same way the playground in the back is sort of built
playground.
into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, it's the piece that has a doorway at the bottom on the lower floor,
Yeah, it's
and a
two
doorway at
doors.
the top.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
So,
Matt does have really good pictures
I do.
that I'm
That's
sure
great
he'll,
art over
that
here.
I'm sure he'll send you if you.
but I'd like to get that taken care of. And just as a little bit of belt and suspenders, and this, I'm sorry, it's in the weeds, but it's worth saying, that I wanted to also put some sort of an awning above that section so that in the future, we're swaying the water away from the building and not having it hit the concrete and go down the drain. So it's,
And I will say,
think
I
the
think
appropriate-
we've all, like, the reason none of us commented on it is because we've all seen the slides.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
And we've
Yeah, no, but it's good
been
to ask.
faced with,
Right.
pushing this down
And this
the road, and I feel like we have finally reached the point where we can't kick
Mm-hmm.
it further.
right.
This is your 4th year of proposing it, did you say?
This is,
Fourth or fifth, but I keep an eye on it. We've done the proper structural testing with a third-party engineer on the outside just to make sure, and it is safe, obviously, but it's one of those things we need to fix, so I want to put it in for this year.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Matt, we've also, in the past, we've repaired the storm drains and water runoff underneath or down on the lower level
We have.
prior to that. Yeah.
We have, I don't know the exact count of as many, of all the storm drains we have throughout that particular property, but I would say in the time that I've been here, we've replaced 4, maybe 5 storm drain structures. So that's the catch basin, it could go down anywhere from 8 feet to 12 feet in different places. So we've had to replace those structures. And that's common to have happen anywhere. Over time, the earth settles, you get more rain and snow some years, and it some areas can degrade faster than others, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on the CRTC automotive lighting?
Sure.
I know it's not the lights in the cars, it's the lights above. Are we replacing that with LED? What is
Absolutely.
involved in that, and will we have energy savings associated with that?
Yes to all of that. Anything we replace the lighting, including in this room, it's all LED. So that's what we do with, and have been doing with all of our lighting since at least 2018 or so. We've done a lot to the CRTC in general. We did a lot of work last summer to the automotive. The one thing that we didn't get to do last year was to increase all the lighting inside all the auto bays, construction tech, the welding area that they use. So this was an opportunity to do that and do some electrical upgrades.
And
too,
do we
so.
do that out of general funds, or are there CRTC funds, Perkins grant funds that go towards that?
For that particular project, that would come out of general funds, but I work hand in hand with Ann on a lot of other projects for upgrades, and we use Perkins funds for that other types of upgrades. Like,
And have we investigated the possibility of rebates or grants associated with putting more efficient lighting?
we always do.
Okay.
We always do.
I just wanted to be thorough enough to ask.
Yeah, no,
so.
I'm glad you do, because not everyone knows that we do that, but.
Before we move off projects, are there any costs that we're budgeting for moving programming with the HVAC replacement in the scheduled for the high school this summer?
No.
No, okay.
No.
No, there's no cost. It's more just about, well, a time cost, I think, because we're going to have to move some equipment, things like that for our, we have a very large program for our multi-disabled students at the high school, and that's going to Runlet. So we have to do some extra staff time, things like that, to have everything set up and equipment and all that ready to move over, and Matt's staff to come over and help us prepare and set up over there. That's about the only additional cost that
Is
would
that
happen.
the extended school year program?
Yes.
And what about the orientation programs for the high school?
They're still working out that schedule.
Okay.
I met with Tim last week about that, and we talked about they're working out that schedule to try to work around and prior to Matt starting some of that work. So we're going to talk about that and coordinate with Matt around how can we get that to happen. Because part of that program is seeing the high school, being in the high school, walking
Yes.
the floors, doing that. So he really wants to find a way to work around the schedule of what has to happen for that.
So, Matt, just because I know that we lost electricity at the Beaver Meadows School earlier this week, I know that in the next, because I was at that capital facilities meeting, we have generators that are proposed in
I
the
do
future
in
budgets?
I most definitely do, in the capital improvement plan, I do.
Okay, and what's the plan, and is it next year or the year after, or when?
We can pull it up. I had it for.
Not terribly important, but.
We don't have a generator here, but Beaver Meadow has been on the list obviously longer. So Beaver Meadow, Broken Ground, we have the generator for Millbrook. Broken Ground is on the list, and then a generator for here.
So the other schools, the elementary schools have
They are.
generators, and
Correct.
it's
In the
Beaver
high
Meadow,
school.
Broken Ground?
Yep, I
That
have a
doesn't have-
generator. We installed a generator when I first got here at Runlet Middle School.
Okay.
Are any of those schools designated as shelters by the state?
It gets tricky. They are, but the standards have changed a little bit.
Okay.
We definitely are available for warming shelters. We've talked about that in certain crises
Okay.
before. But,
Evacuation shelters, there used to be a
Correct.
program where they would provide, there was a grant program for generators at evacuation shelters. I don't know if it still exists.
We'll find out.
If it's on the chopping block.
Thank you. Other questions? All right.
Okay. So just a little history as far as what's been budgeted. The last 2 years, what's been budgeted for summer projects has been 700, but 350 of that 700 is coming in as one-time money from the school building renovation trust fund in order to try to do more projects. As you could see, that history used to be, we used to joke around 250,000, and it's oscillated around that, and we've tried to jump that up to 350 and then tried to help with a little bit of infusion with the school building maintenance trust fund to do a little bit more, just so you know.
And Jack, just because I've been involved in capital facilities from back to somewhere around 14, 15.
Yeah, you might be
we-
all that. So.
Yeah, well, I just know that, in those days, 10 years ago, we were putting 525,000 or so into it. And you can see, this is where we've cut the budget to keep it under a certain percentage. It seems like this is one of the areas that we go after every time. And, always trying to keep our budget lower and not increase taxes. We got down as low as 125, which is, when you think about the facilities that we have is really not a very big amount to be able to keep it under good repair. So, but this one has been one that has been cut in the past. We've always tried to be at over at least $500,000 or more, because that's what we think it takes, but it's an area we cut. And so, just, I know Barb usually provides history, but I thought I'd do this one.
Okay. And then I move to the 5100 series, which is the last of that grouping, and that's debt service, principal, and interest. So that whole increase has to do with the changing of all the debt. The big infusion is the HVAC project.
Jack, if we, and I don't have the estimates with me, but I know you could find them. I think it's, if the city and us agree to go forward with, say, the design and the first phase of Memorial Field in the next year, the drainage, I think it's probably about 6.5 to 7 million. What would that do to debt service? Can you get us that number?
Yep. Okay.
And are we still under our 5%?
In the way we are calculating it, yes.
Okay.
And I put in your book the three things that are factoring that in, because we've tried to maintain, I've tried to separate what's maintenance debt and what's a true capital project. And that's what we count towards the 5%. So, if that makes sense.
And so the 5%, you know what we're talking about?
Right, that's the goal, right? Under.
Our goal is to set aside 5% of our budget for capital projects, and when we're below that number, we put it into our building trust fund so that, to soften the blow of bigger projects in the future.
So this year, you're putting about 2.6 million away, and then that differential is in there. So that's how we try to get to that 5. And that was started in 2005 by that board, and we've been maintaining that since. And it's worked out well, and on economic downturns, that fund comes in healthy. And, you know, it'll continue to grow, but as you're hearing with the cost of run lead, the cost of that is growing too. And without building aid, you're gonna have some tough decisions to make. Okay, I move on to transportation. So, they're also up for negotiation, so I will just tell you that the increase in here is just based on the new agreement that you have entered into, but not any other negotiations is in there, okay? The 1,074 is just the increases that we get on drug tests, CPR training, health certificates, and DOT renewals.
The 1,070, okay,
Yeah.
professional services, okay.
Yeah, professional services,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then the purchase property is up 1150, and that has to do with repairs and maintenance and the increase for the lease where the comp is. Okay. And we're up that a little bit, even though we're getting new buses. We also feel that there's probably, we integrate some of these vans into there's gonna be some repairs and maintenance for that. Mostly we're thinking like tires, or hopefully they don't get beat up too much, but that's why it's up a little bit. And then the big one, when you get into purchase services, that's where the out-of-district transportation is. So you see my little note down there, the $1 million that's coming in from the special trust fund, the expense is sitting right there. That's just where we're stationing it right now. As you see when we go over the proposal, there's drivers, and then that would move, it'll move around, but we're trying to figure out how we're gonna roll all this out. And when we get in and talk about that proposal, we'll talk about the multi-prong approach we've done to try to do that. But right now, there's a placeholder, $1 million, offset by $1 million coming from the trust fund. And then the supplies, that's where the fuel comes from. So we reduced fuel by 32 grand, from 300,000 to down to like 268. And we did that because we think that fuel prices will probably stay a little low. We do enter into agreements with the city. We jointly do bid our stuff together.
Before the tariffs come in on Canadian fuel, we're gonna get that done.
That might be another risk line, folks, just so you know. But yeah, just the way we're seeing where this year is running, and we'll need some fuel for these vans. We figure we don't need to keep that there, because last year there was a good $100,000 in ins and outs there, so that's why I don't think we need to keep it at 300, but let's see where that goes. And you do have an energy risk reserve if we ran into a problem, okay? And then no change in equipment, and no change in the dues and fees. And the equipment really is just we budget for one van. It's a used van just for local driving. As a matter of fact, if you go by Project C or at the high school and you see those little like Dodge Caravans,
I saw today
we
over
go
at
to
Renlet.
we go to Price we buy a cheapie and it's just for kicking around. I don't think we can do that with the van proposal because of some of that
Yeah.
traveling. Otherwise, we'll be hiring a maintenance van right behind that van to keep it on the road. So that's all, we've been doing that for years. And then the dues, fees, and interest is a lot of just the membership, driver's license renewals, DMV record checks are all in there. Okay?
Jack, in the 2700 series, at the end, 2793, what is PTO transportation?
So in the PTO, it all gets intermixed in here, and then we have a revenue, we call it other charter and PTO. So if you look on the revenue line, that just comes in and offsets the expenses. It's just built into here. There isn't a separate piece for
I mean,
PTO.
Basically, I know at least Krista McAuliffe, the PTO pays for all the buses
Yeah.
for
Oh,
field
so
trips.
when they pay for trips, that's what the PTO so we're not paying for them to travel, it's them giving us money.
Yeah, we take it out of general fund, and then we have revenue that offsets it.
Okay.
So that's where that per mile rate comes in, and he
Okay.
does a per mile calculation.
All right,
And I have that data too.
great, thank you. No, I just wanted to clarify what that was for
Yeah.
myself.
Okay. And then I'll go to follow-up, and I think the first thing we'll talk about this is from Monday night, so this is follow-up of some of those answers, and there's probably other things we don't have at all yet, but we wanted to at least hit you with some of the stuff you had asked about.
But the first thing is the van proposal, which we haven't really talked about in depth, other than it exists.
Yes, so you know what? I'm gonna, yeah.
Ready? Want me to jump in a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. You should have that in front of you.
There's you want to go down a few more slides, you have this transportation vendor.
Right, yep, that's where I was gonna leave.
Yeah, it's where you're going.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
so just, numbers are important, and you have this it's in your packet. It's like, it's down a few,
It's on your printout, but then this was handed out to you tonight.
it's in here.
Yeah, I have it on the screen, but it's in your
Yeah, it's in
printout.
there too, and then I handed out the proposal too, but
And then we'll lead into this.
how, a lot of questions came up last time about how did I get to kind of where I got to with the 20 and all that, and there was a conversation with Terry Karate around Christmas, and I kind of said, so tell me, Terry, what do you have right now going on? And this number's actually come down a little bit from where it was. But, so that's just a fact of kind of how many people we are transporting right now using contracted vendors. And it's about 20 vans and 6 monitors right now is what we're using outside of our own fleet. Best way I can say it. You know what I mean? Right now is currently what we're doing on a given day, a picture in time. You know, it changes rapidly, but that's what we kind of right around there. So I based that 20 on the proposal that I wrote to say, okay, if I have a total 175, 83 of them are being transferred by out of district, the rest of them are transferred in district by in-district buses, this is kind of what I had to come up with. So I looked at kind of, you'll see in the proposal, I walked through kind of what it would cost for the vans, what it would cost for drivers, management, maintenance, everything else, if we were to run this like a separate van. As I stated and was very transparent about, I am not a transportation coordinator as much as I wear a lot of hats. It's not one of the ones I do wear. This is the best estimate I come on of what it would be. The actual about, well, how many kids ride in this bus and how many you put in a 14 to a 13 or things like that, I would need Terry for more help with that. I just don't arrange the buses. I call and say, I need a bus. And that's kind of my role. On that, I can tell you that this is kind of what the cost would be. The question comes down in a decision from the board really has to be about, do you want to try it out? Do we want to get 5 buses and give them to Terry to say, let's start there and see, add those to your fleet, add a non-CDL component and do that. You know what I mean? And see, does it alleviate some of this $1 million over? We're still gonna have an overage because I can't control what the odd district costs are, and up to, as Pam said this morning, some are up to $600, and they are. If we wanna go full-blown, go all 20, I'll tell you, this is probably very close to the cost of what it's gonna cost you. About $1 million up front to get it going, and about $1 million a year after that. And then, once we're established, and the buses are here, and we've hired the drivers, and we have that, I can reach out to other districts that are close to us that I've already had conversation with to say, we're ready to go. What are your routes? What are they? Then we put the people together from the transportation people from that district and Terry, and we say, figure out routes and figure out how many on each and who can share and who can go. And then we'll bill out costs like I bill out of someone, if we have a kid in district that is foster, I bill out for all their services. It'd be the same thing. I would just bill out the service for what percentage of that driveway, or what percentage of the monitor, what percentage of the gas, what percentage of the, mileage, all those things. We would figure that out and bill the other districts. That's kind of how it would work. So that's kind of, I think, as far as we are right now. Would you add anything else, Jack?
No, well, just the fact that we're trying to take a multi-prong approach. As you know, you just approved last week, interim bargaining adjustment, and there's changes. Can we fill in our staff? Of this number here, it was 86 in December, so it's down 3. 65 are Concord to Concord trips, which mean they're in the district. So by getting bus drivers, and we have new equipment coming in, can we help mitigate a good chunk of that piece? Then there's about 7 other districts where we are taking the kid that's either going from Concord to another town or the other town into Concord. That we're either splitting because of McKinney-Vento or whatever other reasons. So I think that's the first approach, hence why we did this interim, to see if we could take a crack at that. And then do we slow road out? I mean, I think no way are we coming to you tonight and say, let's just go out by 20 and just ramp up big. No.
So, can Terry, and we invested in this mapping software last year, so can Terry come, I know he's got a lot of responsibilities and we're balancing a lot of, but like, I feel like we need to drill down a little bit more. And if we said, okay, if we're just gonna take care of Concord to Concord, what do we need?
Exactly.
If we're gonna take care of the most common out of, like, we're gonna have a van, we're gonna take care of all runs to Manchester, right? Or Laconia, like what is that, and what's the reduction in cost on the other side?
Payback.
Yeah,
I'm
payback.
looking at what our payback
Yeah,
would be.
what's our
Period
payback?
for payback.
And what's the reality of other districts being able to work with
Yeah.
us to do that?
That's
have
the
some close
important
ones, but
conversation.
It is.
And
So-
what, as well as most convenient, I guess I would also look at what are our most expensive runs, because it may be more payback to run our own van to Rye, right? Is that one of our more expensive?
Actually not.
Okay.
It's just- It depends on the company availability.
Yeah.
It is,
Right.
some of our more expensive rides are actually not as far as Rye.
Right,
It-
but if-
Yeah.
If that's one we know we're gonna do, and Merrimack Valley knows it's gonna do, and Bo knows it's gonna do every day, if that might be one that makes the most financial sense. But I think we need to, I'm very interested in this, I think we need to
Go deeper.
go deeper.
Okay. Yep.
And maybe in the budget, it's an authorization to spend up to, out of the trust fund, on implementing this with the understanding that there will be offsetting costs
Yep.
in the general fund if we go forward.
Because, we have not budgeted any revenue for this.
Yep.
That's what we want to see,
Yep.
what's that reality? So we wanted to be conservative when we came to you.
Yeah. And I mean, to add to that point, you just said, Jack, that you know, the proposal is for 20, but you're not expecting us to go all in for 20. So I'm curious to know what your realistic proposal is. Like, 20 is sort of a 10-year goal, or, you know, what my concern is that the revenue piece will not really come into fruition unless we fully invest in the
Sure.
fleet. Like, if we
Yep.
only get 5 vans to accommodate, you know, a specific need within the district, then we don't get to we can't then go out and advertise. So, you know, we may be spending more, but we have much more revenue potential if we do go big.
Yep.
So I think it's worth having that conversation about just getting it now, particularly because at what number of vans or fleet can we justify support staff? So, you know, if a mechanic costs, you know, a coordinator costs $60,000 a year for 5 vans or 20 vans,
Yep.
now we're getting less.
Yep.
You know, so. I
Routing
mean,
software is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Costs the same amount whether you use it to calculate 5 vans or whether you use it to calculate 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's site-based, so, yep.
Yeah, no, I think that those are all good points. And also, you know, I think the revenue point is, but if we can do 5 vans with our existing and cut, I would want to know if we could take care of all in Concord.
Yep.
What is our savings?
Exactly.
And because we'd also have greater flexibility, which I assume we need, because I imagine where people are living in Concord is what's changing rapidly sometimes.
May I ask a question? For these vans, I would assume there is some customization or fitting out of the interior of the vans. Does that change year to year depending on the people that we are transporting, or does it stay exactly the same?
No, because if you were to get rid of the small buses, yes, but the small buses are equipped to accommodate what the needs are already. So
Okay.
we purposely have, for example, 2 air-conditioned wheelchair vans, you know, because they need to be for both medically fragile and for kids who have mobility issues. So we already have those. So those
these
are on a
would be not-
replacement cycle already. Those aren't things that would do it. These would just be kids that are able to utilize the structure of real thing. If something changed, that would be a different question down the road. But as of we stand right now, no, we're equipped to be able to handle
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
I just have one quick. Having Terry's buy into this, I'm sure, is crucial. So I am curious: has he raised anything that he's worried about that we should be aware of, or is he fairly interested in this project as well?
It's Terry.
I've never met Terry.
We haven't, you know, this has been a proposal. Like, I mean, what we were asked to do was look at what the cost
Yeah.
would be to take this over and do it. And that's
Yeah.
what we did. To this next level of what's been asked tonight, we have purposely held off because we
Okay.
didn't know.
So it'll be next steps.
We
kind of
didn't know
thing, and-
what to go to Terry with. And
He has an awareness of this. but
Terry's
we
an
didn't go very
awareness.
deep.
So he's not gonna be like.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's, as you know, he's busy and it hasn't been great with slippage and slidage going on this week.
Yeah.
So, time and place to sit with Terry and have this overall conversation
Perfect.
about what we want to do. We haven't done yet, but we talked about it today. Should we call him today? And we're like, let's hold till we have the
Wait till the snow
presentation
melts a
over.
little.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be 40 degrees on Monday. Maybe
Yeah.
tell him that.
Thank you.
Well, he's lost 2 drivers in the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
so he's got a lot of other worries, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's always thinking, so.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Other questions? Okay.
Okay,
So, I guess to continue
yeah.
with whatever you can get back to us before the budget cycle ends, but I think this
Yeah.
is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah. I'll move to the next one, staff adjustments. So in front of you, you should have a just different view. We wanted to make sure you're comfortable with how that was presented. So in front of you is a sheet that looks like this.
Yeah. So looking for-
And it's just a different view from what we gave you the other night. It's all the same information, but we tried to group the teaching staff together, support staff, give you what the total reductions are. Then the next section is the additional staff. So you see the 389, which then shows you what the net effect is of that savings, the 584, 482. And then if you add the resource officer, your total would be 482, 828 in reductions. We thought maybe that might be a little cleaner than when we had adds, subtracts it all in 2 different slides. Try to put it in one piece of paper. make notes and
Ms.
whatever.
Hastings?
I just had a couple of questions on this. When I'm looking at the bottom staff where it says additional staff where we're asking, we've got a .4 occupational therapist
Yeah.
at 77, and then full-time SPLA and CODAs. Wouldn't it make more sense to get a full-time assistant versus a .4?
I need that person to supervise.
Yeah, it's the
Yes,
supervisor.
So who
LPA.
we have now can't do it?
We would need the additional, if you had another position, I'm gonna need an additional person to supervise, because if I take time away from people we currently have, it doesn't adjust our caseloads. It takes time for them not working with kids to supervise someone versus saying, that's why I'm trying to do that. I can do it based on numbers with an additional CODA, because we already have one district-wide, so it can blend into that, and that would work. I can't do it with the SLPA, because the only SLPA I have right now is only at the preschool level. I don't have someone district-wide to do that. So I'm creating kind of a new way of doing it, which is a better solution for what kids need, and also physically responsible. Instead of asking for another whole, OT, I'm asking for a CODA with that.
Okay. And then my other question was the ELL teacher, where is that?
Like, where will they go?
Yeah. Is that elementary, is it?
Oh,
high
yes,
school?
elementary.
Elementary?
So elementary.
And that's in addition to what we have currently?
Teaching staff, yes.
And is that justified by the number of students that is increasing?
Yes.
What is
and,
the number of
I
students?
came to the board too and looked at it and said that this was based on the plan that we just did and the ML action plan that we did. And one of those things that we were doing to be in compliance, we need to have certified teachers at each of the buildings, because now we have students that have needs at each of the buildings. And that staff member will be split between Beaver Meadow and Krista McAuliffe, because their numbers have increased.
Ms. Meeker?
I'm seeking some clarification, mostly because my brain doesn't remember things anymore. On the restorative justice coordinator reduction, it's a 0.3 FTE reduction out of the general fund. It was my understanding that we created that position with grant funds, and I welcome reminders from the board as well. So I'm guess I'm just commenting that I thought this was a grant-funded position that we continue to have funds for in the coming year. And then my second question is, does that mean there's still 0.7 FTE remaining for a part-time position for that role?
So that was a .7 grant funded, .30 general fund.
Okay.
And then there is the full-time, the district one you wanted, that position still resides.
Right.
So anything else, as we've said to the monitor, it's Kathleen. I don't know what other conversations you guys have had.
So
as
we're
it relates to
reducing
that.
the general fund portion of that position, but the grant, does the 0.7 still, is that still budgeted for?
That's
as
a
a part-
Kathleen question,
Okay,
honestly.
okay, not a problem. I will ask her. Thank you.
Is that better? Is that easier to navigate?
Yeah, that's
I like
Okay.
this.
All right.
I hate to create more work, but I was wondering if you could get us positions in the district by category, so elementary teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers, support staff, maintenance,
Yep.
central office, separating out like TAC by function.
Yep.
That would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
Ms. Meeker?
And then I actually just had a question, just following up on the budget cycle from last year, where we identified some extra need for the nursing staff. And so we had added a floating nurse. I guess I'm just curious, how's that going? Is the current structure the way that it's staying for this year?
Well, yes, and sometimes things happen for a good reason, and we actually had someone who was out on a medical leave the whole till Christmas, and lo and behold, Laura Anderson, our healthcare coordinator, filled that position
That sweet
because we
woman.
couldn't find anyone, even contracted services, advertising. I went everywhere for that one. Hospitals, you name it, we couldn't find someone. So Laura filled that, and we were able to take our floating nurse and have her support the other buildings as that happened. As we go through, as you know, the start of the year with immunizations and everything else, it was very busy, and it was very good to have that position. And it's really, it's been beneficial. And you know, I have to give our nursing staff credit. Their attendance has been excellent, and they really do a great job. And I think it's really helped having Laura Anderson is our healthcare coordinator and leading that, because they have a united voice together, and it's worked out real well. So yeah, it's added, it's needed. I think it's still functioning. The data's been pretty good on it, and you know, she's been, if not covering a building, it's been a one-on-one situation or something like that where she's had to step in and cover. So. Yeah.
Maybe someday she'll get to do her coordination
Yes.
aspect of her job.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, she
someday.
is still doing
Yes,
that.
for sure.
She
I'm
is.
sure she's
She
doing
is
And the
back to it
Medicaid
now.
for this school.
She's back to it now, and she
Right,
spent the
right.
day in our office actually signing Medicaid, so it's very good.
Good.
That's where I was
I'm so
with her
appreciative
for
of
the
her.
afternoon,
Awesome.
going over a few cases, and she's back in that role a little bit, and it's been good. But the problem is still there's no workforce for this, so it's like, you know, if someone you know has a baby,
Sure.
good for them, and it's great. We're having trouble filling that, and that's kind of what it is. And it's kind of, it's hard because you're creating undue stress on someone who has to leave their position, you know, for that, because we know we're not finding a good suitable replacement right away. So that position's been very helpful to help at least know that the kids are taken care of, and we had a very good start at Beaver Meadow because
That's
Laura
great.
could step in.
That's great. Good to hear.
Yeah.
The rest of your handouts.
I sent them to you.
Yeah, we handed them out.
Yes, I did. They're right there.
I think in front of you, you should have another handout by John. This is in reference to
Yeah.
Monday's meeting, so he'll go through that data you had requested.
So I am a data person, as I think you've all realized when I come in front of you, and I can sometimes, I was trying to find the fine balance this year of not flooding and answering questions and providing, but then when I was asked on Monday night, I said, well, I might as well open up some of the floodgates and get into the weeds and bring you some more data. So I'll start with this first one that looks like, Jack has them to put up in a minute, but it looks like this. And it talks about district placements, and you know, Board President Walsh, I believe you asked me for this, so I kind of brought this forward about those are our numbers of kind of over the years of our placements. They're very good. I will tell you this from around the state. We have the kids that we actually place as a district is low compared to our percentages. You're talking over, you know, 878 kids, and we have 21 that we have placed over the time. So we are very inclusive in that.
That's impressive.
Some are court placed, some are foster placed. We don't control that. That kind of happens to us. Yes.
Preschool, are we still paying for to hold spots at,
Oh, right, those spots.
at private preschools?
Yes, we have.
And have we used them?
Yes.
Okay, I just saw 0 for,
Yes. We just don't have anyone right now that's placed. Like
have we used them this year? I guess?
these are different than so. We have shared partnerships
Yeah,
with
that's
private
not a
providers
district
like the Y,
Okay.
Woodside, and Head Start.
Okay.
Those are our places that we have them at. But that's different. That's preschool shared partnerships where we're like, for example, at the Y, we have a program with them. If parents need full day care and their child qualifies for special ed services, we will actually send providers over and work with their staff to keep kids in their full day program. So they'll do that, and that's a partnership we have, and we pay the portion of the 2.5 hours like we would if they were in our program. Instead, we pay the Y the 2.5 hours. The parents pick up the rest of that tuition. So that's the way it works.
So
So
like-
more explanation. So
Yeah.
by
have a
law, if
question?
a kid qualifies for hours of
Services,
services, right? If they qualify for 2.5 hours of service a day, we have to provide that. We can provide that on our site, or we can provide that in a private provider. We work with the Y because parents say, well, I can't send them to your program because of that.
It's only 2 hours a day.
You know,
Yeah.
hours a day, I need full day care. But we really want to service these kids, because the more we service them, the better they are off when they come to us as full-time students. So we have a partnership with the Y to say, okay, we'll send our OT over, our speech over to service your child there. We'll provide special ed consultation with you in your program, we do that, and we have a tuition rate that we pay a portion of the tuition for that child over there. So they're not in our building, they're over there, we don't pay transportation, we don't pay the other things, they're just there. And that's what we have there, and we have other private providers that we do the same with. Some places we just go in and do speech, and there's no cost at all, and it's just this, our speech therapist times. Other places we have spots at purposely. But that's beyond this, that's more
Yeah,
data I
okay.
can bring you if you'd like. But this is really, the question was around our district placements. So if you see, here's our placements over time. Our homeless numbers, we've had a little dip this month. You know, I think that, you know, Liz Boucher, you said today we're around 100. You know, lo and behold, I go back, I crush numbers.
But that was the number from last month, from this month's
We're down to
board
185.
report.
And this could honestly be 3-4 families. It's not like that have found housing or have moved to another homeless situation across the state. This is just what it is. That's where we are right now. That's a snapshot in time. On the reverse side, our foster placements, you'll see that we have both placements that are in our district and we have placements that are out of our district. And those numbers are lower this year in district, but they're pretty consistent out of district. They've
Can
been
you just
consistent.
explain what the foster placements is and
Sure.
what our obligations
Sure.
are?
If a child is under foster care, which means they have been removed from their parents and they're in a foster situation, some of these are within Concord's walls, and they're families that they're foster families that live in our district, and we provide for them and care for them and do all we need to do educationally for them. And then we have other foster students that are Concord residents that were removed in Concord from their family. So they lived here with their family and their parents. They were taken away at that point. Then they were placed in other parts of the state.
And we pay tuition to those
And
other
we are
schools.
still responsible for their education as a foster child, so we pay tuition for that. But
And
we
other
bill,
places- I'm sorry.
then other people come to us, and we bill the other districts for them. It's a constant flow.
Do we
Yeah.
ever provide transportation so children in foster placement could stay in their, like, say we had a Concord
There's a
child put
bid
in a
meeting.
foster home in Pittsfield, could they still come to Concord?
Every child who's in foster placement has a bid meeting. So the bid meeting is best interest meeting is what it is. And the bid meeting is a point where the whole team comes together.
Right.
Jessica
I remember.
McKay is our coordinator of our district
Yeah.
program. She represents the district in all those meetings. And usually a building principal or assistant principal goes to those meetings, and we meet with the other district, and they determine what's the best interest of this child. Sometimes we have a fifth grader who has been foster placed, and we're like gonna want them to finish the year out with us. So sometimes we transport and we share cost and transportation. We split the cost 50-50 typically, and we'll bring the child back until they make a natural transition to their middle school. If they're gonna be with this family, we naturally.
And what about
transition.
therapeutic placements? Like, I remember years ago, I had a student that needed a therapeutic foster home, which was in like Fremont. But he was a Walker School student, so that kid rode every day, came to Walker, but it was a foster placement.
Sometimes.
So
yeah.
that
And
made
that's
sense for
what-
him to stay.
Right, and this is what, you know, sometimes we have kids that are on our out-of-district list that are fosters. That
Okay.
you'll see on the front cover there, it talks about that we do have students that are foster placed
Yeah.
in our district programs and therapeutic day programs.
The key thing there is we don't have any choice, really.
Nope.
I mean, we have to provide.
No,
for our
I just
children.
think it's important for people to
Yeah,
understand what
that's
our
exactly right.
obligations are here. And does that go on, is it only for the existing school year, or is that for as long as that child's in a foster placement?
Usually you have a bid annually just to see is it still working, and it's usually repetitive. If we
But
have-
our financial obligation to pay the other districts,
Yes.
that goes on for as long as
goes on
the child
for,
is in
yep.
foster
They
care?
They could be placed at 3 and paid till 22, you know, if they're a child of need, and that's kind of just how it works,
They never become the other district.
unless they are adopted, which most of the time for long periods
Yep.
like that,
Yep.
most of the children are in, like, we have a lot of students who are in pre-adoptive homes here in Concord that we know when they come, and we're told it's pre-adoptive. That takes some time, you know, anyone that's adopted knows it takes a long time. So it can take up to a year or more sometimes for that child to be actually adopted. And sometimes is it a good fit for the family and the child, and they don't start that pre-adoption process for a while.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, Jessica does a great job with this and stays on top of it, these families, and every year, make sure we all have them in the right place. And this changes, this moves like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it continually moves, and we continue to have kids coming in and going out, and we have to make sure we know, our registration process is so important when someone shows up at our door and figuring that out. You know, we have to make sure we're on top of that. But she has nice relationships with the other people that do this across the state. They meet, they talk, so they have each other's contact continuously. So this happens all hours of the day and night, that when the child is removed and coming to you, because we want them in school as fast as we can to create normalcy for them. So.
I just have a question. What is episode of treatment?
So episode of treatment is, through the Department of Health and Human Services, DCYF, it means a child has a very severe mental health need or medical need, and they are placed in some kind of residential home. So it could be at Easter Seals, it could be many other places, and it means that it is, they are placed for a period of time. We pay the day portion of that, is what it means.
So the parentally placed in private schools in Concord, is there a approval process for this, or?
Nope.
But we get billed for,
If we provide services, we have to provide, like, if it's if it's placed in Concord and they have a student with an IEP, which would be a service plan, it wouldn't be an IEP, it'd be an ISP, individual service plan. And sometimes they may need Jessica's consult hours, things like that, but it's very minimal, and it's typically just a staffing consult need is what it would be.
but it's not OT or?
Direct service, we don't have anyone right now. Have I had those in my past? Yeah, but not here, and we don't have them now. No.
And this just is talking about where we send staff to work with students?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then let's, next question was kind of district placement and the money around it. So I kind of provided you with this, and I have a great team upstairs, and we had us all crunching numbers today to kind of, when I got back from legislative breakfast, I met with everybody and said, where are we? And we kind of put this all, crunched this together, but this is just kind of an idea. I want to just note one thing, where mass placements this year went up 14%. They have very different laws. They're only allowed in New Hampshire to go up by 5% each year. Our district placements, that's by statute and law.
The cost of facilities.
Cost of
They
the
can only
placement.
increase their tuition by.
Cost of placement by 5%, yes, the tuition. Massachusetts can go up to 15%. So.
And we have students.
And we have students over the border, yep. There's only a limited amount of placements in New Hampshire,
Yep.
and we're having trouble. We have not placed many this year at all. So that's just kind of an idea of kind of that piece. The reason why that number, it went up, but it didn't go up as much as it would, we actually moved one of our more expensive placements. I don't want to say too much in a public forum, but we
Yep.
moved one of our expensive placements to a much more geographically closer location in New Hampshire, and it made a huge difference in the overall price of what we were doing. Because we've had some placements that are up there, and they've been, there's not a lot of them, so sometimes, so continuous service, the way it works, we have a geographical obligation, even when we place out of district, to have them as close to home. So we can't just say, well, we're gonna place you out in, I don't know,
Tennessee.
Vermont, Tennessee, whatever. We can't do that. We have to say, what's the best placement to meet the child's needs within a geographical location, and then we try, and we try, and we try, and we go farther sometimes because we can't find a placement. But we never start farthest and come in, we go furthest and come in, we start close and go out. So there is some, though, that we do over the border because, I'll just be honest with you, they have more of a robust offering because of their structure and their financial structure in Massachusetts around placements. So they're where we can meet the child's need, and we couldn't meet them in New Hampshire.
So question on this one, and just a clarification. In this, it says cost per student. It is not 1,400,000
No.
per
Cost
student.
for all the
You just
students.
didn't divide it by the the numbers. So
Yeah.
if anybody is reading this
Student cost,
at
it should
home
say.
21, no.
and looking
yeah,
at it, it's
divided
more
by
like,
21.
it's more like
You're looking at the student
88,332.
Yeah.
Student
average
costs. Thank you.
I just want to make sure because somebody has this on
Next one, too.
on
Yeah,
their
all of
home
them, all three of
and
them.
at home right now reading it saying,
Thank you.
wait a minute.
If we
Student
could perhaps
costs.
correct it on the online
Doing
version.
it on your
Yeah.
right.
Oh, no, I mean on the website
Yeah.
version.
Yeah,
Student costs.
this handout isn't posted yet, the presentation.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
This was
Okay.
definitely in production all the way to the end.
Yeah.
John and the
Yeah.
staff did a great job in trying to
Yeah.
be ready for
From
it.
Monday night to now, we did it,
Thank
but
you.
it's okay.
It's
Um,
encouraging to see it go from $99,000 per student last year to $88,000, but that's still an awful lot of money per student. There's a tremendous amount of money per
Yeah,
student.
yeah, some of our placements are well over a day placement, some of our day placements now, even in New Hampshire, are well over $100,000. And that's without transportation, you gotta understand.
And that's about the same
That's right,
cost.
this is without
You add
transportation.
Transportation is, so,
is-
so we often do, meet CAP, and CAP is around, and then we go back and it doesn't, it's kind of interesting because CAP comes in the year after. So it's like,
Could you explain what
all
you're
of our-
talking about
so-
when MECAP?
So CAP means basically, so for example, I'll give you, because it's on the sheet, there's a court cap on there of $59,740.98. That means for those court placements, that was our total cost, because once we reached that cap cost, we got fully reimbursed by the DOE for those children that were court placed.
Except then it was prorated.
Not for the court placed kids.
Not
it
for the
wasn't.
court
Not for
court
court
placements
placed
are not
kids.
prorated. Well,
Now,
that's something.
there's another system, it's called special ed aid. Used to be called CAT aid, now it's called special ed aid. It used to be called catastrophic aid, now it's
Right.
called special ed education aid. So special education aid, each year they give us a number, it's gonna be around $80,000 this year, just to give you the number is what it would be. Now, once we reach $80,000, so all year we submit on these kids. We know the kids that we're gonna reach cap on. We submit all monthly, all of our invoices, all of our bills, even if it's internally, we bill ourselves for like our OT, our PT, our speech, we figure it out by hour, and we internally bill ourselves all year. So, once we reach the threshold of the $80,000, that is reimbursed back to us. The memo last year said we were getting 80%. We only got 66.4%. So we had a projected revenue of a certain amount based on what we thought we were going to get, but we only got 66.4%.
And is it only over 80,000, or is there
It's
something?
only
a
over,
pers-
it's over 80,000. So
So-
for anyone that reaches that cap, over that money over,
So
we
there's
can
still
bill.
a big divide between the $4,100 in adequacy plus what's the sped
Right.
differential, like 1,000,
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah.
to the $80,000 cap
Yeah,
and
it won't be
providing an
over.
adequate education.
So it's hard to put a dollar to this because the fact it comes in the following year. I don't get it in this year's budget. I get it the following year, so it's very hard to make that dollar to dollar exchange and show that.
And the state justification for dipping to the 66% was that they prorated every day you were post 80,000.
Yes.
I see.
So they take the budget the money that they have, and then they said, well, we only have X amount, so we're gonna pay 60% of what we owe you as opposed to 100% of what we
They
owe.
seem to do
And they
that quite a
adjust
bit,
that
don't
yearly,
they?
CRTC is another
Let's try that.
Yeah.
Let's try it our
We should
way.
just
then-
start doing
Sorry,
that.
we're just gonna, we
And
don't.
then
we
your
can take
final,
this-
your
See that
final
with our
sheet
property
is a
tax.
follow-up from what I was asked. What I was asked to do about OT and speech. I
Yes.
gave you a lot of data.
Thank you.
Thank
Because
you so
asked
much
for
for
it.
that.
And I tried to break down, those are just initials, because I didn't know how to, calling speech language 1, 2, 3, 4 was too confusing, so these are initials of the actual people, to kind of say, here's their caseloads, here's what they are, here's how many weekly units they have, how many evaluations, how many referral meetings they have each year, which a referral meeting is, they're doing an evaluation on a child, and then numbers of meetings per week, just to kind of give you a bigger picture of this. But it paints the same picture when you see numbers like 65 and 48 and 50, and they're up there for our people. And the same thing, we have OTs that that certainly have support from a CODA right now, but it's still 71 is a big number to manage with IEP writing and goals and all those things. So that's why I've asked for the services to help relieve some of the individual therapies, to free them up more to do some more of the evaluation, some more of the needs of the most needy children, and work with the most needy children and free up some of these. So that's kind of where I went with a CODA and an SLPA, because they can provide those services, and it's a more, in a budget, it's a more cost-effective measure than actually asking for another $120,000 for another teaching position.
Do you remember last time we met and you said, I can give you units, but it's not gonna make a whole lot of sense? You're correct.
Well, I do think it helps me a little bit
Does it?
in that, yeah, well, if you're figuring that, I think you said a unit was about a half hour.
It's a half hour, that's by
Yeah.
law.
That,
Half hour.
you know, so somebody who is doing 55 units a week, that's plus all these other things, that's their entire work week. You can,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and the thing
If you
about.
add in lunch and,
Right. The thing about an SLPA coming in is like, so again, in reality, and I'm going to put my former principal hat on, and to say this, I'm running a schedule where I have a 90-minute literacy block. I want students included in that. Then I have another 100-minute math block. I want students included in that. My time to pull kids and do services, and Barb will remember this being a special educator, is very limited. We're not taking them away from the academic inclusion. If there's two of me, I can pull double the kids. If there's one of me, I can't possibly be in that many places at once to do that. So adding another person to come in allows me to grab 4 kids versus 2 kids, at the same time. And that's what the reality of adding some personnel to do this is, allowing us to service more kids during the given blocks we can service them in. Does that make sense, the way I explain that? I'm trying to,
I trust you.
It's in my mind, but I'm trying to explain that,
Yeah. It's an incredibly complicated
yes.
system, and I appreciate that you can navigate it as well as you do with the staff that you have.
Okay. Anything else? Is there any other data, information that folks would want? That Jack or anyone should have at the next meeting? I think we've asked a few questions, but we asked about the athletic trainer, we asked about staff.
Yeah, we have to get with Terry, Jack and I, can
Yeah.
get to you on that.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
aware it's
excited to
coming.
hear where that's going.
Yeah.
I talked to him today. Yeah, you asked about what that service would be with Memorial Field,
Real,
staff by
yeah.
function, and then we'll break down the adequacy a little further for you. But we're gonna get into that in revenues
Yeah.
on the 3rd, so. And then,
Oh, yeah, we're not gonna see each other next week.
no, we're not.
But we'll find a way.
I'll be in Florida, come to Disney.
So just to close it out, to reinforce the work sections, we have, right now, you have closed out 2. This is your 3rd work session. On the 3rd, we will do the revenues and transfers. And then, I'm gonna go to the next slide. The 5th is where there'll be an SRO presentation. I think a little bit more formal from Jay and giving him his time. Thank you for doing that. And then that is the hour and a half you have within that presentation. But anything else that you want from us, we'll prepare for. But that's the night where we asking you to post a budget for public comment. Because the 17th is your first hearing. You need at least 10 days according to your charter. I don't think you want to be doing Saturdays and Sundays, so we can give you a little more time.
And we've done both things. We have posted the budget as presented and then come back after the public hearings and made changes. We have made changes before the public hearing and posted that budget and then came back and made additional changes. So it's, on that meeting before, when we post the budget, if folks want to bring amendments, they can certainly do that. Or we can also wait until after the public hearing. Oh, and uniform, you were gonna get us the
Yeah, so-
equipment,
I have
uniform, yeah.
cycle, yep, I have
Yep.
that down. Okay. Everything is posted on the website. Again, all the same stuff. Your information is on there. And the budget document 1.0 is still in there. We will likely do an update before right after you post or right before, and then maybe we'll do one when you post, depending on. Because right now, what we're gonna do is we are trying to going through, back through it in line by line. And then, whatever little staff things, I mentioned that New Hampshire retirement, we're gonna fix, do a new projection run, and we're hoping to post that and see where everything comes out. And if there's changes, we're gonna come to you and show you, okay, the budget's now down here. Our goal is not to say, oh, it went up. Our goal was to have them down and say, this is what we found. This was an error, or there was a duplicate pay screen. And that has happened when we updated, like I said, we upgraded the software in November. Usually when there's an update, we find a little something that they forgot or it added, but, okay. Other than that, we will see you on the 3rd.
Questions? Any other discussion? I will take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved?
Moved by Mr. Richards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Boucher. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Enjoy your break, folks.
Well done, guys. That's so.
Okay?